Yeah, we can open it up to the house now if anybody has questions. Yes.
I was just kind of curious about how casting went. I mean, I know like you knew Justin Bartha before this. Did you like have him in mind specifically for that role when you wrote this, or did you kind of cast it afterward? Or
yeah, like kind of early into the script, I realized I was writing it for him, maybe even unconsciously. He's such a unique actor to me, somebody that can, you know, like what he does in this is so kind of charming and funny, but he maintains kind of something scary underneath it, and that's so important for the role because you want to feel like there's something always hovering over me that's threatening, and then towards the end you start to realize what it is, that he's just possibly more kind of insecure and vulnerable about our relationship than maybe even I am, even though I'm the one that seems so explicitly insecure about the relationship. And he's able to balance these very seemingly in conflict attributes in such a wonderful way, and so funny all the time. I mean, that goes true for everybody, but of course I knew Justin well. I mean, Camille and Remy as well. I was just so fortunate to have people who have a sense of humor, but never at the expense of kind of what's real about their characters. Yeah.
Why did you pick Binghamton as the location?
Yeah, who picked Binghamton as a location?
Stephanie in the back. She did all the research for the play. I originally set it in Burlington and then Poughkeepsie, and these are places that I knew well. And then at the last minute, we discovered there was no graduate program or Black Studies graduate program in these places.
At Vassar, there was no graduate school at all. So we did a last minute, like, oh, Binghamton. Are you from Binghamton? Are there any Binghamton crowd today?
I bring true to you.
We pardon for any offense. Yeah. So, but it's a kind of small town with a relatively diverse community where there's a college where some privileged kids are going to be going, where there's also some neighborhoods that are, is that what you thought? And you're nodding. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
My question is, as a student in theater and acting, a lot of the times my teacher tells me, I love to act, but I love to write also. And they tell me that I shouldn't do both. Mm-hmm. Because I like to act in my pieces as well. Mm-hmm. So I want to know, how do you manage? I choose not to listen, but it works. But I want to know, how do you manage and how do you deal with that?
Well, it's probably a good idea to maybe sometimes refrain from acting in your pieces so you can see as a writer how they more purely play out. I've done that before, and sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's really frustrating because you feel a lack of control over it. Mm-hmm. But it's probably good to do both, but if they tell you shouldn't do both ever, that's insane. Yeah. I've been doing that for years.
Yeah. Would you ever consider playing the role of Vinny or a character like that with the
Yeah, I've thought about it, and I would love it, and I think it would be kind of a fun thing to do. We haven't set up this production in a way that allows that, but I think it would be really interesting. I also think Justin could do a good job in this role, and I think maybe we could do it for fun. Unfortunately, we can't do it in this production, but yeah. But I when I'm writing the character, I'm equally interested in what he says, and I'm equally behind what he says. Sometimes more so than my character when I'm writing it, that is. And it's a lot of fun for me to think in his mindset, and I completely understand the way he thinks, even though it's totally in conflict with a lot of the way Edgar thinks, and I can completely defend his mindset, even though in many ways it's short-sighted and also very different than Edgar's.
And how would you define his mindset?
Well, I think he has kind of a very strict moral code. I think it probably changes arbitrarily, but to him it's not arbitrary. At one time it's okay to make fun of the bagel, but a second later it's disgusting. How dare you talk about it? That's the thing she's eating. And it makes sense to him because of the kind of the way it's being done and who it's being done by. Like I can't say anything because when I do it, it comes from kind of comes from a self-serving place. Well, I'm interested in her because I'm interested in her kind of anthropologically, so it's disgusting when I say that. But when he says it, it's okay because they're ribbing each other, you know what I mean? So he has kind of this code, and also I think he thinks of himself as somebody who was born in the wrong skin, and he kind of feels like he feels more comfortable in, whether it be black culture or, you know, or African culture or, you know, or jazz, you know, whatever it is. I think he feels like he has been kind of misplaced, and he looks at Edgar, who is so, you know, torn up and guilty about it, as a reflection of him that he hates. And so he keeps me here to remind himself that he's not like me, that he's like him, and so that he can abuse me, because he can abuse the part of himself that he's disgusted by, which is this kind of walking white idiot, like I said.
We talked about that in rehearsal. Actually, it was a really interesting thing that came up. There was no place for it in the play, but that Vinny used to really find something tremendously of value in Edgar, and there was talk about a line being like, I saw myself in you, you know, and that now he's disgusted by that part of him, and so he wants to take all his anger out on this former version of him that he just like beats the shit out of, you know, Edgar in order to beat the shit out of himself.
I'm a Filipina, and I was a little concerned how the play was going to go, and I'm curious, and I saw from there earlier, I was wondering what you guys think of how you portrayed Filipina. Do you think this?
Well, I mean, the goal is not to portray, you know, Filipinos en masse, but the goal is to portray this woman who comes into the house with the best of intentions under weird circumstances, is kind of treated strangely by these two boys and tries to maintain a good relationship, and then is torn asunder when she realizes that one of them has been spending time evaluating her in this crass way. And so that's how I think of the role. I'm not thinking of it in terms of a commentary on Filipino culture. I can't speak for that experience. I could only speak for the experience of this girl I knew, and then while writing it, other girls I knew that I sought out. And that's how I think of the character.
Is Asuncion a Spanish word? I was trying to Google it and it doesn't work in here. It seems like it might mean some coming together, something like maybe Vinny was really more codependent on Edgar.
Yeah, it's a religious term meaning the Assumption of Mary.
Oh,
The Assumption to heaven.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ascend, maybe.
but Vinny assumes, like a lot of people do about Filipinos, that they speak Spanish.
Yeah.
As well, because they were colonized and they have a lot of Spanish names, and so he thinks. He says, your name means Assumption, you know. And I mean, it doesn't matter if people catch it or not. But the idea is, you know, these boys kind of just throw all this meaning onto her in a presumptuous way, and they assume stuff about her. But that's a name, you know, that I found in the Philippines. I thought it's appropriate.
Are they really one character, alter egos of the other, a complex individual?
The two boys?
Yeah.
Are they like an alter ego of each other?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not in any kind of weird existential way, but in like you know, in the way that two friends who separate but still are kind of made up of probably the same stuff are. Sure.
Maybe just one more.
Sure. Okay. Right.
Do you think that if his character hadn't changed, how much do you think Edgar would be able to grow?
If Vinny had changed?
If Vinny hadn't changed.
Oh, Vinny hadn't changed.
How much do you think
Right.
Edgar would have been able to grow?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question and interesting to speculate about, because I think if Vinny probably didn't change, he wouldn't need to abuse Edgar. Edgar wouldn't have become such a victim. So if Vinny kind of was able to be secure in his own life, then he probably wouldn't need to have somebody around who he abuses. And then Edgar, of course, wouldn't assume the victim position. And it would be like two normal humans, you know. Sometimes that doesn't work out.
I think that's a nice note to end on.
See how much better he was with his mom in the crowd? Yeah, she's like
Go over there, go over this. Okay, well then if you want to ask him